ਜੌਨ ਰਸਟਡ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ 'ਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਸੋ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਜੌਨ for visiting Primeasia TV and taking time out for this interview today.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
First of all, John, I would like to congratulate you for fantabulous performance. I think it was amazing to see a new party coming up with a lot of new faces and giving such a tough competition to an existing ruling party in the province. How did it feel?
Well, we went from 0 to 44, just missing forming an election in a year and a half. And, it's satisfying to see what we've been able to build. Obviously, we would like to have been government, but what we've been able to build in that short period of time, nobody in Canadian history has ever done that before.
Absolutely.
And so it was quite remarkable getting to that point. And in many cases, we were building the aircraft while we were actually flying. I mean, we were trying to figure out how to put pieces together. So it was quite something in terms of the strength that we were able to build over such a short period of time.
Absolutely. I think winning 44 seats and right now having 41 sitting party members, it's that's what I think it's ideal for any democracy, that a strong opposition to keep checks and balances in place with the ruling parties.
Well, and the interesting thing about the Conservative Party in British Columbia, of course, we haven't had a Conservative Party really running in this province for almost 100 years.
Right.
But we have, in many ways, we've redefined conservatism in Canada. When you look at our support base, 18 to 35, the younger vote that's looking for that change, that hope and optimism, ethnic minorities that voted for us in droves across the province. So many things that typically a Conservative Party didn't tap into before. And so I'm very proud of what we've been able to build in terms of this coalition of the Conservative Party of British Columbia.
Great. So how was your first session? Let's talk about that first. How did it go?
Well, I can tell you the first 4 weeks of session, as we've gotten into it, everybody was excited but nervous. We had 36 new people.
Yeah.
And so for many of the people, right, this was all about their first opportunity under fire, their first chance to be able to say things in the legislature, to be able to ask a question.
Right.
So it was very exciting for them. And I actually think they did really well. I'm actually really impressed with our entire crew in terms of the quality of questions they asked, the way they've asked them, and how we've held government to account. I mean, I can never remember a government that has won an election, done a throne speech, and a budget, and got zero traction out of all of that.
Wow.
And so it's remarkable, actually. But it's a target-rich environment, too, because of all the challenges, all the issues that the NDP have created here in British Columbia, and especially in communities like Surrey.
And I think the people who won, they won because they had that content in them. And it is just a matter of getting used to the new environment, and I'm sure they're going to be sailing in a smooth ride.
Well, one thing that I've seen and heard from most of the media outlets is they're impressed with our crew, with the people who've been elected, because they're just average, everyday people.
Right.
Right? They come from, what is British Columbia, from every corner of this province.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a huge strength to see it. It's very refreshing, actually, in the legislature to see that kind of strength from just the average individuals that are coming forward and, looking to represent their ridings.
You know what? We come from a community in Punjab. And in Punjab, exactly the same thing happened. A new party came up, which was called Aam Aadmi Party. And then they had people who were all common people, common faces. And they did a turnaround in Punjab, and they're the ruling government right now. So I think we could relate to that when we saw elections going in here. And that's what made it very interesting for us, that we could see something which we've seen in recent past in our own province in India. And the same thing happening in the place where we're living right now. So it was quite interesting to see that.
But that's what democracy should be.
Absolutely.
Is people coming from, representing the people, coming from the people,
Right.
fighting for their riding, fighting for those values that should be there. It shouldn't be this command and control from the center. You should be able to have that mix of people coming forward with those fresh new ideas. And so I'm very proud of that. And it's something I never want to lose as the Conservative Party in British Columbia. I want us to continue with that type of approach to how we do democracy.
And they come with a very deep understanding of grassroots problems, because they have been through day in, day out, right?
Exactly. Like, for example, our MLA who's been elected from up in the Skeena region, which is Terrace and Kitimat. I mean, she actually overcame addiction. She was living on the street, addicted. She was able to overcome that. She started her own business. She got elected as a counselor in the city. Now she's elected provincially, and she's driving for those changes because she's seen it. She's experienced it.
Absolutely.
And it gives her just a wealth of knowledge and strength that you don't see every day.
Right.
Even here in Surrey, right, with the candidates, right, former RCMP, people like Mandeep, people like Eleanor,
Right.
people that have just come from various backgrounds that are able to stand up and fight for the issues because they've lived it, they've seen it.
Great. So let's now move on and address the elephant in the room, Bill 7. How do you see it? What it is?
I look at this bill and I think, how is it that a province wants complete and utter power to do anything they want without oversight in the legislature to avoid the actual democratic process? Bill 7 gives the NDP the ability to do anything they want for 2 years without any question, to be able to spend as much as they want, to be able to change laws, to be able to introduce and do things, anything they want. No other jurisdiction in Canada is doing this. No other province is. Why is it suddenly BC thinks they need these powers? It doesn't make any sense. And I'll just give you some examples of some of this authority. They can collect your personal information and use it for anything they want. They've given themselves immunity. So if they go and actually trample on your rights, you haven't even got the legal recourse to go after them because they've given themselves immunity. They can bring in tolls. They can bring in road pricing. They can do anything in terms of that. They can spend as much as they want as a budget. It's actually called a Henry VIII clause, which gives them total and complete authority in overriding the will of the actual people in democracy.
So what's the status right now? Like, has it been presented? Or?
So it's been introduced in the legislature for what's called first reading. From there, it then goes into what's called second reading debate. Okay. And so that'll be a process that'll start here likely in early April. And then we will go through and have that debate before it goes to committee stage. We're going to do everything we can to try to stop this bill. It is an affront to democracy. This is the type of bill that you would see coming forward in a communist regime, not in a democratic province like British Columbia. I mean, like I say, the authority is scary. And I'll give you a few examples of what they could do. Yeah. Now, I'm not suggesting they're going to do this, but they've got a problem, for example, with TransLink. $600 million deficit next year. They're talking about cutting services. They could just come in and automatically implement road pricing, charging you for every kilometer you drive as a way to fund TransLink. TransLink has said they want to do that. Through this bill, they could just implement it. They could also, for example, and this, I'm not suggesting they're going to do this either, but it's an example of kind of authority they have. They've already introduced a bill that says if you have a vacant property and you're not renting it out, you could be taxed for it in terms of vacant property tax. Well, they could actually go and say, if you have a room, a bedroom in your house that you're not using and you're not renting it out, you could be paying a tax on it. That's the type of authority that they've asked for. I'm not suggesting they're going to use that, but you've got somebody who has lied to the public about bills, for example, a $1,000 rebate, and now they want complete and utter control to do anything they want. That to me is just a complete affront to democracy and something that everybody, doesn't matter what your political stripe is, should be doing everything they can to fight and push back.
So it's more of a dictatorial style of functioning rather than...
Absolutely. Yeah. It is complete control. In many cases, he doesn't even need his NDP caucus anymore. He can just go through and actually do things. He doesn't even have to bring it to the legislature. He doesn't actually have to show support. He can just do whatever he wants. And that, the only time that anybody's even tried to do anything like this was like in World War I. This is crazy that a government would look at doing this. And like I say, we are less vulnerable than any other province in the country with regards to dealing with the Americans. Why suddenly does David Eby want this kind of authority and power? It makes no sense whatsoever. This needs to be defeated. We need people to stand up and say, no, we want to protect our democracy in this province.
And don't you feel it is important right now to operate as one unit as a country? Because we have a giant and a Goliath situation right now, where one of our strongest ally has suddenly turned his back on us and we are clueless with what to do. So I think there has to be someone who's connecting the provinces and coming out as a single force. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's no question that we actually should start thinking of ourselves as a country instead of separate jurisdictions of provinces. We actually have to start thinking of ourselves as Canadians. It's why we've proposed to bring down our trade barriers. We've got a simple bill that would do that would allow us to be able to bring down our barriers with other provinces as on a reciprocal basis, to actually start thinking of ourselves as a country. British Columbia, the current tariffs that are in place, or I should say the current barriers that are in place across our own country, is equivalent to a 23% tariff. Let's lift these. Let's open up our trade. Let's get our oil and our gas to Tidewater and get it to other markets so that we don't have to deal with the Americans. come at this with a position of strength. We need to open our minds and strengthen our economy and help drive down the cost of things like our agriculture and our forestry. This is how you build a province and strengthen it. And then you go to the Americans and say, okay, we want to trade with you. You're our trusted ally and friend. We want to be able to have open trade with you. But you know what? If you don't want our products, that's okay. We'll send them elsewhere.
Yeah.
And instead of coming at it from a position of weakness that we have. And this approach that David Eby's doing, which is all that will do is inflame the situation and create even more challenges that we have, it is wrong approach. We need to open up our economy. We need to deal with the Americans from a position of strength, not from a position of weakness that David Eby has.
And like recently, after Makani took over the regime of liberals and is the current prime minister, suddenly we are seeing a trend shifting from the conservatives who were leading the, all the trends so far, but now suddenly liberals have gone up back. So how do you see this change of power has, like, is it gonna be good for Canada, or is it something which needs to be thought through before anything happens?
Well, it's hard to know exactly how things will work out. An election, lots of things can change an election. As there's an old saying that a week can be an eternity in politics.
Absolutely.
And so we've got an election that's about to come. But I look at things from this way. What is our problem here in Canada? We have not been able to take advantage of our resources. We could be some of the wealthiest, the highest quality of standards in terms of living, in terms of healthcare. We could be all of that. But instead, the OECD nations are saying that we're going to have the worst economy going through to 2060. So you look at the policies that are causing it. It's not just one person, but it's the policies and approaches. For example, the carbon tax, it just kills jobs. Doesn't matter if it's on the business side or on the personal side. It hurts obviously on affordability, but it makes us less competitive. We need to get rid of that. We need to open up our economy and our opportunities, investments. So which political party is the best to be able to do that? And when you look at it, you think, do we want more of what we've had for the last 10 years, which is what the Liberals are? Or do we want to see a change that could open up and create that full promise of what we can be as Canadians? And to me, I think the choice is obvious, but we'll see what happens when we get to the polls.
And President Trump today said that he's happy dealing with liberals than conservatives. How do you see him like?
Well, so what is President Trump trying to do? He wants control. I mean, for example, in British Columbia, we've got tens of trillions of dollars. That's with a T. Of resources, particularly natural gas and oil, that we could be putting to market, that we could be using to benefit our people. Trump wants control of that. And when he looks at the political landscape in Canada, he's probably saying, who is best for me to be able to be opposed to, because it gives us more chance to control those resources. And I think he's looking at it thinking, well, the Liberals would be better because, they are creating all kinds of problems. If we had a Conservatives, we might actually be fighting a strong Canada economically. And that's where we need to be. So I think he's playing a very interesting little game.
So I think this statement should go in favor of conservatives then.
Well, I think it probably could, but you have to look at what Trump is doing. It's why does he want Greenland? Why is he interested in Panama? Why is he interested in Canada? He wants to create the strongest economic bloc that he possibly can, and this is how he sees doing it. And I think, quite frankly, we should be saying to the Americans, hey, you know what? We love you. Great allies. But we are strong, we are Canadian, we are independent, we can take advantage of our own resources and make sure that we have what we need for our people. And we're happy to trade with you. But if you don't want to trade with us, it's fine. We'll find other partners to trade with to create those opportunities.
And the products we have are in demand across the world. So there are other countries who will be happy to trade with us.
I can tell you what, right now, like I say, we've got tens of trillions of dollars of natural gas just in British Columbia.
Wow.
Plus, you look at what the Alberta and Saskatchewan has, the other values we have across this country. We could be an economic powerhouse. We're the 10th strongest economy. We could very easily move up that scale and become one of the larger economies, certainly an energy superpower. Trump knows that. That's why he wants our resources. That's why he keeps talking about us as a 51st state. I have no interest in being American. We should be a strong country of Canada. We should be taking advantage of these resources and fulfilling that promise. Everybody in this country and in this province came from somewhere else. All of us came here with the promise of being able to build a future for not just themselves, but their children and grandchildren. And that has been undermined and lost. We need to restore that promise.
In the current scenario, all this problems which have come up because of President Trump and his statements and these tariffs coming in, everyone is anticipating a recession, or if not recession, maybe a slowdown wherein people are scared for their jobs and all. And we suddenly hear that you are looking at another election in British Columbia. So, how true is this, and is it feasible in current scenario? We should be having something like that.
So David Eby has said he wants these dictatorial powers in Bill 7. And if he doesn't get them, he will go to an election and ask the people of British Columbia to give him that dictatorship. And I'm saying, bring it on. We will try to bring down Bill 7. And if he wants to go to the polls, I am more than happy to go to the polls and to say, we need to protect democracy. We need to strengthen our democracy. We need to make sure we've got a government that's fighting for the people, not a dictator that's doing anything he wants. So my perspective is we need to defeat Bill 7, and we're going to do everything we possibly can. And if that triggers an election, it's not a great time to have an election, but I'm prepared to fight, because we need a government that actually is going to put people first.
Right.
That's going to make sure that we strengthen our economy, to make sure that we can push back. I mean, we've got the Columbia River Treaty, we've got the Pacific Salmon Treaty, all these are up for negotiations. We've got a softwood lumber dispute. We've got all these things that we need to do. We need a government that understands how to fight from a position of strength,
Right.
not that's going to roll over and try to use a pop gun to fight back against an elephant, right? We can't be doing that.
Right. So I think that was all from my side, John. Is there anything else you would want to talk about with the residents of British Columbia?
Well, I think, for the residents of British Columbia, like I say, we need to fulfill this promise. We have seen close to half of the youth want to leave this province. 1 in 3 people are thinking about leaving British Columbia. When you look at communities like Surrey, that's been treated as a second-class city for far too long, our healthcare is in shambles. There's so many things that are wrong. The drugs and crime in our streets. We need a change in course. This is what we campaigned on. We campaigned on doubling our agriculture production, on making sure that we're electricity and it's self-sufficient, and we see that vision for the future, opening up our resources to improving that quality of life. That is still, those values are all still there, and it only has been emphasized by what Trump is doing south of the border. So we're going to continue to fight for those values that we think are important for British Columbians. And if that means we have to go to the polls, we'll do it. But I'm very proud of what we've been able to build, and I'm going to continue to build and finish this job.
We also are extremely proud of you, John. Thank you so much for taking time out today, and we'll have to have you sooner in our studio again to talk about another issues. Thank you so much.
I look forward to the opportunity. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, John. So this was Leader of Opposition John Rustad with us. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to connect with you. Thank you. Keep watching Prime Asia TV. ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ